Thank you guys for joining our webinar today. It's our first webinar for 2021, more to come. This topic was selected based on a vote we had. Hopefully, everyone that our current clients from Social Bakers, as well as people that are not our clients, will benefit from this. Just to manage everyone's expectation, because we got this question earlier. So although we said social media reporting in less than 20 minutes, the actual report setup will be less than 20 minutes, but the webinar will be almost 50 minutes because we'll be covering other exciting topics. Today, hosting the webinar with me is my amazing friend and colleague Dina Al-Masri, which is our value adoption manager that you guys might have worked with earlier. On the call, we have our amazing CSM team that did not turn on their camera. So if you can turn on your camera, we have Ali Rahal, we have Rene Yassin, we have Kiara Gali, and we have more of the CSMs joining. We have Karen joining also. Sorry, they're all under Rene Yassin's name, no idea why, but they will be available to help us during the Q&A. So guys, at any time, please feel free to share your questions on chat, and one of us will be happy to address them during the webinar, and we're gonna have hopefully the last 10 minutes for Q&A depending on the time. So what will we be covering in today's webinar? So first of all, we were going to be talking about the social media 2020 trends that actually impacted your annual performance. We know this year was not easy for everyone, and the social media landscape was completely different than last year. So we're going to be touching on trends that will help you analyze any findings. And then moving on.
So the second topic will be how to easily read all your data in 2020, see how you performed in 2020. This will prepare you for the third step, which is how to set up your measures or how to measure your KPIs, how to be informed when you set up your KPIs based on 2020 data, reading this data, based on benchmarking, based on other features that we will speak about in the session. And then finally,
and then we're going to end it up with some 2021 trends that you guys need to keep an eye on that will help you better plan for 2021 and have your strategy tailored for that. We promise that point 2 and 3 will be under 20 minutes, but point 1 and 4, I'll try my best. Moving on, just to start to get to know you guys more, and it will help us really structure the webinar better, let's start with some poll questions. Okay. First question.
Obviously, I forgot to unmute. The first question, have you already submitted your year-end review, finished your reporting? Yes, still waiting for this session. Okay, we'll give it literally 10 more seconds. Okay, let's end and share results. Of course, yeah. So I can see, yeah. I'm happy to see that 30% have actually finished. Sorry that it took us a bit time before we presented this session. I don't know why I unmute. It's a bit, yeah. For those of you who haven't yet, we promise we're here to help. This session hopefully will add to your results, to add to your efforts. Let's see the second question.
So the most challenging part of the end of year reporting, do you guys think it's more of collecting the data or identifying the trends or actually putting the whole presentation flow? If any others would love to hear from you on chat. You're muted. By the way, anyone that catches the amount of time Dina's speaking while she's muted, you can DM me on private and you get a gift. So the second question, people.
So I'm happy to see that you guys know the challenging part. So a few others, but in terms of data consolidation, identifying trends, they're all very challenging. Especially, honestly, to me, consolidation of data and just finding the trends in front of you to read. If I have that, done. The third part would be much easier to have to come up with because you see the ideas, you see the opportunities in front of you. Let's now share the third question. I know, guys, there's a lot of polls, but we want to understand also your struggle. It helps us focus on the things that need focus. The third question is how much time does it take you to create a report in general? I know it differs between weekly, monthly, or yearly, but I'm sure there's like a scale of time that you always spend when you're creating a report, especially if you're an agency working for a client, demanding clients, or clients that have so many brands that you want to manage all of them, create reports. I think we can end the poll, share the results. So there is a 30% of you who take days to report. It's painful, I understand. 40% who take hours, only 18% who take 1 to 2 hours. Hopefully, after this session, you will find ways where you can no longer speak hours, you just minutes, and your reporting is done. Finally,
the last question and the most important question. So what is worse? Is it 2020 world problems that we all faced, enjoyed hopefully, or actually sitting and reporting on your 2020 social media activities, which was a nightmare for me when I was in agencies before? Let's see the vote. Oppa. Cool. Great. All right. It was really lovely knowing you guys. It really helps us understand where your challenges are, so to help better structure the webinar. And just moving on, as I mentioned, COVID was not easy on the digital world. It had its benefits. It impacted a lot of brands depending on the industry. But overall, there were three major things that really impacted. And if you focus on these things, it would really help you analyze your data or justify your data. The first one, as we know, a lot of brands invested money in paid because that the cost per click, cost per thousand impression, overall spend was decreasing. So you will be able to spend more with cheaper rates. Second, organic interactions increased a lot because people were mainly online most of the time. So if you guys faced any impact during the analysis, which we will be showing you soon, we know that organic really helped. Influencers, for brands who really worked heavily with influencer in 2019, might have reduced their budgets with influencers. And we can see in trends that at the end of 2020, it kind of picked up a bit. So this is something we also need to consider. Moving on, there were again new developments that were focused on 2020 that can actually have impacted your strategy. First of all, social e-commerce. Not sure if a lot of brands already tried Instagram shops and checkout, so the retail industry got impacted with this feature, and it would have affected your overall social media performance. Second of all, content placement. I know Instagram Reel is still not available here, but we have people from all around the world on this call that may have explored Reel. A lot of people put more emphasis on stories and IGTV. And then TikTok, we know it's hitting the market nowadays more, and especially with live and virtual events. So these aspects might have also impacted your 2020 strategy as well as results.
So now let's talk data. Of course, you cannot just decide on what works, what doesn't work, or what you want to try without looking at the numbers. So brands need to rely heavily on the data. What are the main questions that we would like to answer? What is working well? What is not working well? And what could work well? The challenges that present itself when we're talking about reporting, first, defining the metrics. Some of you or some of the brands know exactly what they want. We want reach, we want engagement, we want comments, we want likes. Some brands don't know what to look for or don't know what to define as an objective or as a KPI. The second challenge is data consolidation. Of course, the long way, which is followed by a lot of the people, is to go natively, post by post, export the data, combine, visualize. This can take 70% of the time, while you could have spent it on ideation or reading, analyzing, qualifying the data. The third challenge, which some people don't see as a challenge or don't realize that it's a big challenge, and that is data visualization. It's very easy to me to get the data, but it's challenging to show the qualifying or qualitative parts in the data. Sometimes, or some visuals can combine 3-4 metrics trends in one visual. You can read a whole story in one visual. Sometimes data gets lost because you don't have the right visualization. The final challenge, and that is reading the report, finding what I should listen to, what I should take away from the report to help with my next strategy. So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the reporting part. We're going to tell you how or what you can use to read the data or what you can use to report on your 2020 performance. But just to recap on the main objective of the webinar, the objective of the webinar is to train you to be able to report within minutes on performance. To be equipped, or the recipe for that, you have a one-off list of steps that you need to follow. The first one is define the metrics, which is something you need to agree with your client or with the brand objectives. Specify what are your data sources. Based on that, define competitors, define your brand pages, do the labeling on those brand pages, etc. The second step is set up your rule-based labeling. For those of you who do not know what rule-based labeling is an automated feature that we have that allows you to tag posts that you create or your competitors create automatically. What's the objective of this? Objective is to be able to break down your content based on content pillars, based on campaigns, based on creative styles, whatever you're trying to study, and then be able to look at the data just for those different silos. It helps you understand more what drives which KPI. It helps you know which is the winning, which is the lagging topic that you choose to communicate with your clients or your followers. The third step is, now that you have the metrics, you have all the setup, the back end ready, set up your report, create the widgets, design the flow of the report, and have it or call it your template. This template then can be reused, repurposed, then automated and scheduled. After that moment, your reporting shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. You have the report ready, data consolidated, scheduled. You just need to add your own touches, maybe combine some more data from the other sources. Now,
and just to add, so for people who are familiar with social bakers, you'll be able to understand with the terminologies as well as the different templates we're going to show. However, for people that are non-social bakers, it will still resonate with you guys because at the end of the day, we all report in the same way. However, with social bakers or any other tool, you'll be able to automate, but we'll be going through the flow for anyone to be able to adopt it from the participants today. So I think now we can move on to the demo environment. We like to structure our webinars, if you attended our previous one, to show you actually how things can be done, not just talking and sharing text. So before Dina starts and takes you through this amazing dashboard, I just want to clarify two things. First of all, for my agency times, and I think you guys agree, what we used to do whenever we report on 2020, we used to always take into consideration 2019 or 2018 and do a comparison. Considering that this year was kind of special, I would do the comparison but not dwell a lot on it. Instead, I would recommend that you do a competitive analysis with 2020 with your competitors, whether direct or indirect, so at least you have a more objective view, because comparing to 2019, 2020 would sometimes, depending on the result, could be actually really good or really bad. The second thing, the report that Dina and I will take us through is structured on a way to show quantitative data as well as qualitative data, and the best way and the best metrics to be used and how can they be analytically described, and the best visualization. So every single metric we have included, there was a purpose behind it, and we will be taking you through the reasoning section by section.
So So the starting point is, what is your presence? This is something you need to know. So you need to know what's your potential impressions, potential audience that will be seeing your content. Based on that, if you're targeting more people, you need to grow, you need to target with ads, you need to understand where you're going, your marketing efforts should go. Am I unmuted? Okay. Now the second part is year-on-year growth. I want to know, I know 2019 is different, but I want to know, how did I look? How did COVID affect me? What are the changes that happened in compared to 2020? Starting with followers. So in terms of, I think Hiba will
So moving on, so we discussed the most important part, which is followers and followers growth, which is one of the main KPIs that brands look for. The second part is content. And here again, we're looking from a quantitative perspective only. I know there's a lot of KPIs for brands and agencies to report on how much content was published and finding a correlation between quality and quantity. Sometimes we might say, oh, quality is so important, and then we see numbers saying otherwise, which I believe there's no one solution fit all. It's all based on your brand and what resonates and works with your audience. For example, in the case of Social Baker's account, we can see that we actually produced less content than last year, yet the engagement was higher. So these aspects and these analysis, again, we're only looking from a quantitative perspective. The qualitative will come later in the flow of the reports.
Now for the second part, we're presented here numbers that we believe you should look into. You will be able to, once you have this report, remove the things that you don't care about or you think it's overwhelming you or overwhelming your clients with the data. But we believe that you should be looking at this data. This is not a report you do every month. This is a report you do to understand every aspect of your social. So I want to know if my engagement per post increased or decreased, correlated with how did reach per post increased or decreased, understand how video views got affected. So all of these metrics, as Hiba said, in a quantitative view, are here along with its growth year over year.
And as you can see, the style of graphics we used are numbers and showing percentage. I know that some brands prefer a table view, which you can always extract and export in that way, but we focused on numbers because that's important. Now, moving to trends, as you can see, the visualization completely is different to be able to actually see the trend in growth.
So here you see the intention of placing the quarterly or monthly trend is for you to just try to correlate. If you see a slight or a significant increase in content, you want to see, did that affect any growth? Did that affect your engagement numbers? You want to see if there was significant or there was an event in time that something happened and you want to understand more about it. Those trends will give you access to that data. Here we see the quarterly trends. You see which quarter outperformed. Some quarters we published less, yet we achieved much more impressions. What did we talk about in that quarter? What was happening in that quarter? So all of these data, of course, broken down by the different platforms, are presented to you on a quarterly basis. Now,
and then we go now to content overview. We know that you guys most brands have their content divided into weekly content pillars or monthly editorial calendars. In addition, you have campaigns editorial calendars. At a certain point, you need to understand how each content pillar performed, if it was unique to the platform or it was consistent across all platforms, as well as understand what campaigns performed better and how did they overall, like how much time did you invest, let's say in Halloween this year versus how much interactions or impression or reach you received. So you are able to understand if these campaigns were triggers to increase your engagement or increase that objective or actually impacted you negatively. So here now we're focusing more on the content aspect, and the most important aspect is the mediums. So did you guys explore any new mediums this year? What medium worked on what platform? Should you be considering any changes to these mediums? Again, what's interesting about doing an annual performance, although you're focused a lot on 2020, but these trigger ideas for 2021, because if this happened in 2020, you were focusing or you'd not very explored carousel, maybe that's a reason for you to start exploring carousel. Or if carousel was really doing well, then again, that's a reason for you to consider. So these pinpoints of analysis will help you consider both 2020 and 2021.
So now that you had a view of what you have created, what mediums, as Hiba said, what campaigns, what content pillars you focused on, what's the overall sentiment on the content, what's the overall sentiment on that content, the next section is the juice. What drove reach? What drove engagement? What drove follower growth? Answering those questions will present the actual need that you need to put on your calendar or on your strategy for 2021. Now, what we presented or what we put here is based on just basic split down of content by media type, by content pillar, by campaign. It's up to you to drill deeper, to dig deeper, see how did your product lines or sub-product lines perform? How did the different creative styles, where we focused on animation more, we focused on this creative style, your editorials, especially if you're in media, which editorial drove reach? And then start, after splitting down the results, start reading. Okay, it looks like in terms of reach, carousels and images are driving reach on Instagram. So if we're investing a lot of money, a lot of resources on creating videos, and our objective is to drive reach, maybe we shouldn't invest that much this year because a simple carousel, a simple photo might do the job. Same story goes for the breakdown. So what are the content pillars that drove your reach? What are the campaigns that actually significantly drove your reach? For example, here, our Halloween, that last year was significantly better than any campaign we've done. Let's go, let's study what we did for Halloween. Let's learn from that. After that, Hiba.
Yeah, and after that, we consider different aspects, as Dina mentioned. So we look into reach, we can look into impression, engagement rate, and just understand how each one got impacted by the different content or campaigns that we were running. You can go down a bit. And then again, we go into the trends aspect. So what actually drove that follower growth per campaign? So we're not even considering just the peaks and trends on followers growth or decrease of followers throughout the year. We're trying to associate that to campaigns as well as events and content pillars that happen. So we're trying to, as much as we can, help you with the analytics and not just giving you quantitative numbers. We need to try to dig and understand why were there peaks or why were there pitfalls during the year itself. And as you can see, the graphs changes here. We use the line graph because it helps you understand and see that trends more than, for example, bar graphs or pie charts, which are all available visualization in the actual suite.
Now, for example, if we're talking social bakers, let's see here. In Facebook, we've been struggling with followers, but there was a point in time in September where there was like a very good spike in followership. We can associate it, for example, when we look at the campaigns we ran with our acquisition by Astute, with our release of the listening solution. We know now that drove this much, or hypothetically drove this much followers. The same analogy can be done on the other platforms, especially whenever you see a significant change in the trend, and then look at the what was posted around that time. Bear in mind that if you're looking at daily data, you cannot say, okay, the growth of today, it's because a post I put today. Usually growth can lag. So you can see the growth a day or two after. So still you can associate those trends with the content itself. Now for the competitive.
And as I mentioned, and I think I'll be answering Kiara's, Aditai. I don't know if I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. So basically, I agree with you guys. 2020 was a tough year. It was different. So we should always have a comparison to the previous years. But I was saying, don't dwell on the results. I would rather you do a competitive benchmark, whether it be direct competitors or indirect competitors, because they all went through the same thing during 2020. When it comes to 2021, so far we don't know what's going to happen in terms of social media trends, world problems. So I cannot judge at this stage if we should compare 2021 to 2019. That's why this dashboard or in any reporting, you should always be flexible. You should have all your results available to be able to do that comparison at any point. So for the competitive review, we do the exact same exercise we did earlier for the pages. So we take the same exact metrics because I want to understand from a competitor, did they use any other formats that I did not explore? Did that format resonate with their audience? And then we have common campaigns. So we know all retailers celebrated season greeting and New Year. So with a click of a button, we're able to understand how their New Year and seasonal content worked versus my content as a brand. So that competitive review gives you more context on where you stand in ranking in terms of both quantitative as well as qualitative data. And I got a question also on Q&A. We have a special report that Dina is going to show now, which is related to COVID. So basically, I know COVID impacted a lot of brands. So we have another report that will actually show you how COVID conversation, the sentiment from those COVID conversation, and if that impacted, again, the metrics we already discussed. And for paid, which was one of the questions, we're going to be covering paid reporting also.
So to recap on what just Hiba said, we have this dashboard is for the published space. We will show you a similar report, similar analogy on the unpublished space. For COVID-19, in the beginning, we thought, okay, let's add it as part of this report. But then we thought, why redo what we already did in the beginning of the year? I don't know if you guys were aware, we were distributing some analytical dashboard on analyzing 2020 COVID-19 trends in terms of sentiment, in terms of content production around COVID, in terms of competitive benchmarking around the topic. The dashboard is very comprehensive. So we thought, why add it to the same dashboard? Why keep whatever dashboard we had already created? This is just a sample dashboard we created for a brand. It shows you amount of content, so the trends of engagement and content creation around COVID. It shows you the trend lines of COVID, how platforms chose to talk about the topic. Some brands, maybe competitors, didn't talk about the topic. Then you see split down or breakdown by brand. You will see breakdown. You will see comparison between engagement trends of COVID versus non-COVID. You will understand, did actually people take that content from you, engage with it as intended? Is the behavior different for competitors? Of course, the report is comprehensive. It includes top content as well. And this is the sentiment graph where you can analyze how correlate what happened with COVID with sentiment. This is just, as I said, a separate dashboard. So you will have two dashboards per request, depends on what you need. Some of you, or I think a big chunk of you already had this dashboard, so you can use it for the yearly analysis as well. The final part of the report is a review on community. How was your customer experience? What is the generic sentiment? And what channels, what forms of communications have they chosen to communicate with you? Starting with the trends. Yes.
And just adding here, it will help you understand the most frequent questions you guys had to be able to avoid them or find a solutions to adopt them. So for example, if you realize that your agents are spending most of the time answering FAQs, then maybe that's an option for you to explore chatbots. For example, if you felt there is a lot of negative sentiment on a certain topic, maybe you need to address it or have a campaign related to it. So community management, I think, works hand in hand. I know sometimes it's dealt with a separate team, which is customer service, but at the end of the day, as a marketing department, all data should be consolidated and reviewed before setting any 2021 KPIs. I think we can move to paid.
To the paid. So this is the summary of how people chose, or what are the topics that people chose to communicate with you, with the trends of the different topics and the sentiment. Now let's look at the ready report made for paid. This is under your paid section. The nice thing about this report is you don't have to build anything. The report or the visualizations are ready made. It analyzes different aspects. So you just need to choose the dates of 2020. I think I chose 2019 accidentally. So I just need to move it to 2020. Sorry for that. Let me actually, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to change, but assume that this is 2020 data. What kind of views you can see? First of all, you can see how much you spent in total, what's the overall average of cost per click, what's the average or cost per engagement, cost per CPM, how did the reach and impressions look like, and then looking at platform and placement. And here you can see a lot of opportunities of understanding different trends. For example, you see yourself spending on a certain on a certain placement a lot, knowing that most of your campaigns are asking or are promoted for clicks. And then you notice that there is a placement that is cheaper with higher click-through rates. Maybe we should invest in this aspect or in this placement this time. Let's look at the different platforms. Well, we're investing mostly on Instagram, and we noticed that on Facebook we get better results. Maybe we should shift our budget this year. Of course, you can see the view also per audience, as in a breakdown of age group and gender and demographics, where you spent or location, where you spent your money, and the different campaign objectives that you use. It's ready-made. You just need to, after looking up the data, after checking the report, you can simply just export it as a PowerPoint and then add it to your main dashboard. So your dashboard that you have created can be exported as well. It can be automated as any report. I'll show you once it's loaded. I think this is the dashboard. Yeah. So you can export it to PowerPoint, combine those two reports, start the analysis, add some slides for analogy. You can also schedule this report every year from now, although it's just an easy task. But those tasks are, or those steps are very important for your monthly or weekly reporting, so that you can automate the whole thing with no need to bother just going and finding that data. Let's go back to, I think this is the demo part. Yeah.
And then setting up your KPIs for 2021. So as I mentioned, while you are reviewing your 2020 performance, that will trigger a lot of conversations internally with your team on what to learn and what to consider for 2021. We covered the competitive benchmarking. As I mentioned, understanding where your competitors stand and what's happening will help you set up realistic KPIs. I know that in a lot of cases, you need to commit as a brand to management or an agency to a brand and say, I promise, or I will get you X percentage growth of followers or X percentage increase in engagement, etc. I don't believe there is one solution fit all. When you do a competitive ranking or understand the competitive market, you'll be able to give a realistic KPI with also considering your growth over the past couple of years. So a combination of these two metrics, you'll be able to give a realistic deadline, a realistic KPI. And then considering everything that's happening, as I mentioned, a lot of things happened in 2020 where we were not able to achieve our KPIs. So as always, we recommend you review your KPIs every quarter just to be able to advise where you stand as a brand. The last thing that we would also recommend is ads benchmark, which Dina will show you now, will give you a bit of more insights in terms of the paid perspective to see where do you stand in your region in terms of your paid activities, again, to be able to set more realistic budgets and KPIs for 2021.
So one of the reasons we wanted to show the benchmarks section, we all know that you guys are familiar, it's one of our strongest features, is that we recently introduced GCC benchmarks. GCC benchmarks is all the ad accounts from the GCC, because we know spend trends or cost trends are different from the whole MEA. So you can see how your spend or how your different trends look like. I think I hope my internet is okay. Just give me a second. Let's see if we have questions. Maybe I can try to access it from here. I should have created it before. Okay. Great. So basically, we have three kinds of benchmarks. We have videos for Facebook, specifically for Facebook. We have ads for your ad account, and we have the public metrics. If you go to the ad account, you'll be able to add your ad account, let's say Social Bakers, and then you can compare it with GCC. Of course, we have other industries, other regional data, which you can benchmark against. But if you want to see how the GCC looks like, you just compare, and then you will understand the different performance benchmarks for your ad account split by the different metrics. I'll show you once the data loads. Of course, this is just for last 30 days. You have to expand and go 1 year back and then see, in terms of spend, did I spend more, less than the average of GCC? It looks like we're in the 50th percentile when it comes to spend. When it comes to the different engagement metrics, where do we stand? Do we have more impressions, more reach, more click-through rates, more clicks than the benchmark or less? In terms of costs, are we more expensive? Should we focus more on optimizations this quarter or this year, or we're good, we need to aspire to be better? And finally, what are the average in terms of frequency? Are we less in terms of frequency or more? Where do we stand? Of course, followed by the different trends of those different metrics. This is an amazing report, and having it for GCC can add new perspective to your data.
And we still have also free resources on the website that allow you to understand overall the ad spend during COVID compared to different quarters, different regions in the world. So I would really recommend if you guys check the website and our blogs, if there is still a certain region or industry that you still need info, you can always email us and we'll be happy to source that information for you. Another important thing, so we started the presentation for whoever came late because I got a question about 2020 trends. So we started the presentation talking about the three major trends that impacted 2020, which were the paid, organic, as well as influencer, and the evolution and introduction of new features by the platforms. For 2021 predictions, what we see so far that they're going to be more adoption of micro content. Micro content, I mean here content that expire, like stories in specific. We see all platforms exploring in that heavily, and we will continue seeing a big rise in 2021. So it's really good to have a specific strategy for Instagram stories. Then we're going to see a lot of people investing in online and SMS messaging between customers from social media and then taking it to other channels, as well as the AR. You guys, I'm pretty sure you heard about the Facebook release of the AR glasses that is coming soon. Then we have the e-commerce aspect where Instagram shopping is there, Facebook catalogs. We're going to see a rise because, as we can see, a lot of people during COVID moved to online, and these trends are continuing in 2021. Branded partnerships are increasing, and we can see that heavily in TikTok nowadays. Virtual events seem to continue. As you can see, we're still having webinars, although we usually have our famous Engage on site. This year it was on webinar and online scale globally. And the last one is short and live video will continue. But again, I would always recommend to see your pages and your audience and see what resonates. Although trends might say carousel are the best performing type of content, or live video or videos are the best, I would always go back to data. I would always take my decision based on what resonates with my followers on my page, regardless if the industry, everyone is recommending a certain format or a certain KPI. And our support extends. So if you are a client, you know and you're fully aware that we have dedicated teams that will help you with your projects. You can always reach out for more trainings, more support on specific cases or specific challenges, and we'll be happy to cater to your solution, to your challenge. We have a lot of quarterly reports, trend reports, and webinars on our website for you guys to explore, and they're all for free. And if you are not a client, again, you can make use of our free collateral on the website, and we are more than happy if you even reach out for a specific consultation or advice, or if you would love to explore our suite and solution, again, drop us an email and one of our business consultants will be in touch with you. And by that, I think we are
So just a final recap. Today's topic is reporting in under 20 minutes. What we showed you today is just one aspect of reporting. Now, this report that we showed you, to do it next year, it will take you less than 10 minutes, not even 20 minutes. Same story goes for your weekly, monthly report. You do it once, you design that report, and then you understand exactly what you need. If you're missing some metrics, you understand where you can get it in Suite. Let's say I need the paid, I understand this is my paid report. I save that report, export it at the time, and then combine my report. The other 10 minutes would be just for you to analyze, find your deductions, and build your final report and present it to your client or to your manager. Whatever resources we showed you today, please, if you're interested in the COVID dashboard, in the 2020 year review dashboard, you have your customer success manager. You will have our email when we send you the follow-up. It will be, yeah. So just one thing.
We have an actual gift that we just got. So thank God it was on time. So our amazing data team compiled two nice presentations. So we always get the feedback that we have our own templates for our clients, and it's easy said than done that we can analyze content. Okay, there are graphs. What do we write? What do we comment on a graph? So we have these reports that again we'll be sharing in the recap email. So basically, it shows you how a structured, nice presentation would look at would actually look. So for example, Dina, if you just can go to slide 4. So it will show you the graph and it will show you the source, and it will actually give you an explanation of the graph. So you can basically just fill in the gaps, change the client name, change if it's a peak or a decrease or an increase, etc. So it has all the details that you want. You just need to plug it in. You can go to the master slide, remove Social Baker's logo and update it even with your own logo, or take the same template and implement it on your brand's report. So these reports, we have 2 templates that have been done. One of them is the client performance analysis, and the second one is a campaign review. So if you are reporting on a specific campaign, you can use this template. It's nicely designed, done with everything explained to the point, including how do you write your analysis, which is one of the most, I think, challenging part when it comes to understanding data inputs.
I think this is pretty much it. Let's go to I like that we're on time. Let's see what other questions we couldn't answer during the session. Let's see, starting from top. We're just still on the chat, then we'll move to the Q&A. Thank you guys for the comments. Sharing the presentation, definitely. Just try to compare results with 2019. I think that was Aditya already. Nice. The page, we spoke about it. The report will be shared with whoever needs it. The effect of 2020 on other brands or other regions, as I said for Noor, we have a lot of quarterly reports from last year. It's going to continue for this year. So if you're interested in a certain industry for multiple regions to see the different trends in paid, in organic, in published, you can just contact your account manager. If the data wasn't, let's say the industry is very specific, it wasn't there, we can explore what kind of data we can provide as part of our services. What else do we have? The widgets coming this year, we have a lot in stock for this year, especially on the paid side. We have all the paid all the paid metrics. We have a paid section, but we want to incorporate this data into the dashboard so you can add it automatically as part of your reporting. We also have some other customized widgets. You will always see the new widget always on top in your dashboard. So on your dashboard, when you add a new widget, this is done. If you go to your dashboard and then you add a widget, you will see all the new widgets on top saying this is new, this is new, this is new. So recently, few widgets were added for community management. You will see response time, incoming messages. These are the new widgets. Keep checking whenever you build a report. Keep checking those widgets. You will see this data. Presentation, ads benchmark. So yeah, I think Ali answered this one. Twitter paid. So Twitter paid, unfortunately, we don't have that yet. In terms of Instagram Reels, and I don't think we have access any. There aren't any APIs for this one,
No,
right?
still Instagram Reels, the APIs are not available yet. However, as soon as we have access, it will definitely be part of our production plan. Whenever we add something new, it will be there. We also have another question not related to the webinar about posting stories. Stories, again, it's an API issue, but we have a workaround. So if you're a client, you can still post scheduled stories via social bakers, via notification like any other third party. Until we get full access to the API, then we will be able to do it natively. And I think the main reason for that is that the platform itself, stories, they like it to be native because then you'll be able to add all the features, to have it live. So I think that's the reason why they're not providing the API as flexible as other aspects.
Some questions about, in terms of quarters, what was the craziest quarter in 2020? We always like to look at the data per industry, per region. For sometimes industries would not be affected, some industries are affected. We know that most industries got affected, but some of them affected badly, some of them affected positively. So whenever you're interested, again, in a region, in a certain industry, just shoot an email to your account manager. You will see the data. Of course, you can already see the data in your own brand by looking at the quarterly results. You can see for each quarter which had the highest negative sentiment, which had the highest comments, engagement, follower growth, etc. So you can already see the data from the report for your own brand, even the competitor brand. But in terms of industry in general or region in general, we would have to provide you this data specifically.
In terms of the qualitative reporting, Mandy's asking, so we kind of did the qualitative reporting while we were talking, while we were taking you in graphs. How to insert it in a dashboard is simple. There's a widget called heading. Dina, if you can just click heading. Yeah. There's a widget called heading or header, if I'm not mistaken. So if you include that, you'll be able to write the analysis and that widget will appear above the graph or below the graph, and then you'll be able to export it. Or you can use the PowerPoint templates that we shared with you that has all the qualitative aspect. And forgot to mention one thing, every single touch point on the report, every single graph is clickable. So as soon as you click that graph, you can actually see the content on another section we have, which is Content Hub, which is important because sometimes we might say that Halloween was the best, but honestly, I don't remember what I did in Halloween or what was the best post in Halloween. So as soon as you click on that graph, you'll be able to be taken to see the actual content. Thank you, Hadil.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, you can change, Sarah, you can change the profiles in one go, or do you need to go to each widget and change it? This is Sarah's question.
So just one last thing. If there is any feature, anything that, for example, you have the dashboard, the CSM helps you with the dashboard and you don't see the sentiment data, check with the CSM. Could be missing automation feature, anything you're interested in, you don't see. For example, there's a section on community. Maybe you don't use our community management tool. So if you don't see it, instantly reach out to the CSM. They will guide you, or they will tell you exactly what is required for you to access that data on your dashboard. I think we're pretty much done. Hiba, if you have anything you want to say. I like that we're actually
just answering Sarah. So there is an option where you can select more than one widget and you change the data source. I understand some widgets still don't have that feature. So if that's the case, please feel free to email your CSM and they will be more than happy to assist and duplicate that or update it or align it with your own brands.
So basically, to recap on this point, all the new widgets, because the way the widgets are created with all the flexibility features that the new widgets have, it's still a challenge, or it's still work in progress to be able to collectively change data sources or edit the widget. So only for the new widgets, you will not be able to do that, but a solution already is being prepared for this. So you soon, hopefully, you will be able to do that collectively. But we tested it ourselves. I know it's like a manual task in the beginning, but it should not take you time. Once you get used to changing data sources, literally your report, as I said, and we measured it, it should not take you more than 10 to 20 minutes, actually 10 minutes maximum to change the data sources, another 10 minutes to just retouch, add some points, edit some points, combine the data, and that's it.
We're going to have a poll question. It's going to be hosted on my LinkedIn as well as Dina to be able to decide on our next webinar topic. If you guys have any suggestion, please feel free to reach to us on our emails or our LinkedIn profile to share, because that will help us better plan for our next webinar. So far, as a teaser, we heard a lot about paid and optimization and cutting costs. So the next webinar might be that, unless we get other ideas from you guys
Preference.
or preferences.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.